Leo stood on the observation deck, gazing at the alien city sprawling before him. The sky was a deep shade of violet, the sun barely visible on the horizon, casting long shadows across the towering spires of the Varen capital. He had been sent here for diplomatic purposes, to establish peaceful relations between Earth and the Varen, an alien race far more advanced than humanity. Yet, as he watched the distant streets pulse with neon lights and the hum of flying vehicles above, his thoughts drifted elsewhere. It was hard not to be captivated by the sheer beauty of the city and the beings who lived within it. The Varen, with their smooth skin that shimmered in the dim light and their sharp, angular features, were unlike anything Leo had ever seen. They moved with an elegance that almost seemed unnatural, as if their very steps were designed to leave no trace. Among them, one woman stood out to Leo more than the others. She was walking gracefully along a narrow pathway that connected two towering buildings, her movements fluid and purposeful. Her skin, the color of polished silver, seemed to glow under the artificial lights, and her striking violet eyes shone brightly in the darkening world. She wore a simple, flowing garment that clung to her slender form, the fabric rippling like water as she moved. Leo could hardly believe he was seeing her. He had been trained in diplomacy, taught to keep a level head in every situation, but something about her presence stirred something deep within him. He spoke to himself quietly, as if no one could hear his thoughts. "She's beautiful," he murmured, almost in awe. He wasn't sure what he expected, maybe a passing glance or a casual acknowledgement from her as she continued her walk, but he didn't anticipate what happened next. The woman stopped. She turned her head slightly, as if she had heard his words, and her violet eyes locked onto Leo's across the vast expanse of the observation deck. For a brief moment, he felt like the entire world had paused, and all that existed were the two of them. His heart raced, and a wave of heat spread through his body. She couldn't have heard him, could she? Yet there she was, staring directly at him with an expression that was both curious and knowing. She tilted her head slightly, as if she was studying him, reading something deeper than just his physical appearance. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice was smooth and melodic. "You admire my beauty, human?" she asked, her tone calm yet full of unspoken weight. Leo froze, his mouth going dry. His mind scrambled to find the right words, but nothing seemed appropriate. How could she have heard him? He hadn't spoken loudly. He had barely even raised his voice. Was it some kind of trick? Was she just toying with him? I didn't mean to say it aloud," Leo stammered, his face flushing. I thought it was just a thought." She smiled then, a small, knowing smile that seemed to suggest that Leo's discomfort was almost amusing to her. "Thoughts are often more powerful than words, aren't they?" she said, her voice soft, almost soothing. "And I too can hear them." Leo blinked, taken aback. He wasn't sure what she meant by that, but he couldn't help but feel both exposed and fascinated at the same time. Was she saying that she could hear his thoughts? All of them? She stepped closer, her movements as graceful as before, and Leo couldn't help but notice the way her presence seemed to fill the space between them. There was something ethereal about her, something otherworldly. He knew she was no ordinary alien. She seemed to possess an air of mystery, as if she was both more and less than what he could comprehend. "Do not worry," she said, her voice softer now. "I do not invade your mind for the sake of amusement. But it is not difficult for me to sense what you are thinking. We, the Varen, are people who communicate beyond words." Leo stood there, stunned. The concept was difficult to grasp. He had learned about the advanced technologies of the Varen, their ability to manipulate energy, and their astounding achievements. But this was something else entirely. She wasn't just beautiful, she was powerful in ways that defied everything Leo understood about communication and connection. I'm sorry," Leo said, unsure what else to say. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." The woman tilted her head again, her violet eyes reflecting the soft lights around them. "You have done nothing wrong," she assured him, her voice gentle. "You are not the first human to be taken aback by us, and you will not be the last." Leo's curiosity was piqued, but he felt a flicker of unease. He had come to this alien planet with a specific mission in mind: diplomatic relations, establishing peace, and learning from the Varen. But now he was distracted, his thoughts swirling around this enigmatic woman who seemed to be both a mystery and a mirror. Her gaze softened and she took a step back, giving him space. "My name is Saren," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And you are Leo, yes?" He blinked in surprise. "How do you know my name?" "I know more than you think," Saren replied, her smile widening. "I know you were sent here to learn about us, but what if you find something you never expected? What if, instead of learning about our civilization, you learn about yourself?" Leo's mind raced. He had no idea what she meant, but there was something in her words, something in the way she said them, that made him feel both intrigued and deeply unsettled. He had come to this planet to learn about the Varen, but now he wasn't so sure what he was learning about. Saren began to walk away, her footsteps light and almost silent. But before she disappeared into the crowd, she looked over her shoulder and spoke once more. "You may not understand yet, Leo, but you will." Leo stood there, the weight of her words pressing on his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter, this simple, unexpected meeting, was only the beginning of something much more complicated than he had ever imagined. And somehow, despite his better judgment, he couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in the air after his brief interaction with Saren. She was not just a beautiful alien, as he had first assumed. There was a depth to her, an intelligence and power that radiated beneath the surface, something that unsettled and intrigued him in equal measure. He spent the next few days wandering through the Varen city, trying to keep his focus on his mission, but it was hard. Everywhere he went, his thoughts kept drifting back to her, to Saren, her violet eyes, her graceful movements, the way she seemed to understand him better than he understood himself. The city was unlike anything Leo had ever seen. It was alive, humming with energy. The architecture was a strange blend of organic and technological, with buildings that seemed to grow out of the ground like trees, their smooth surfaces reflecting the soft, multicolored lights above. The streets were alive with alien beings, some humanoid, others unrecognizable, all going about their business in an orderly fashion. Leo had never felt so small. The Varen were peaceful, advanced, and beyond anything humanity could ever hope to achieve. Yet there was an undercurrent of something more, something beneath their serene surface, and Leo had no doubt that Saren was at the center of it all. It had been 3 days since their encounter, and Leo found himself drawn to a central plaza where a large holographic display was projecting images of the stars and distant galaxies. He had come here to meet with some Varen officials, but the moment he arrived, he saw her. Saren was standing near the center of the plaza, talking with a group of high-ranking Varen leaders. Her eyes flicked toward him, and for a moment their gazes locked again. Leo's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected to see her again, certainly not in such a public setting. He hesitated, wondering whether he should approach her, but before he could make up his mind, she smiled faintly as if she had anticipated his thoughts. "Leo," she called out, her voice carrying across the plaza without effort. "Come, join us." There was no room for argument. Leo found himself walking toward her, his feet moving of their own accord. As he approached, he could see that the leaders around her were all humanoid, their features sharper, their clothing more formal. They gave him polite but distant glances as he stood beside Saren, who was still watching him with those penetrating violet eyes. "These are the High Counselors of the Varen," Saren introduced. "They have heard much about the humans and their efforts to establish peace." "We are intrigued." Leo nodded in acknowledgement, trying to hide his nerves. "It's an honor to meet you," he said, offering a polite smile. I hope we can work together to ensure peaceful relations between our people. The counselors remained silent, observing him. There was an air of judgment, as if they were silently assessing his worth. Leo felt the weight of their stares, but it was Saren's presence that kept him grounded. Her calming influence seemed to ease the tension that crept into his chest. For a while, the conversation turned to more formal matters, discussions about trade, technology, and mutual cooperation. Leo tried to follow along, but his mind kept wandering. Every time Saren spoke, every time she glanced at him, he felt like she was reading his thoughts, understanding his every unspoken word. He was both drawn to her and intimidated by her. She was a mystery he didn't know how to unravel. As the meeting continued, Leo couldn't help but notice that Saren's attention was no longer focused on the conversation. Instead, she seemed to be watching him, her eyes narrowed slightly in concentration. There was a subtle tension in the air, one that Leo couldn't quite place. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the counselors dismissed themselves and the plaza began to empty out. Leo and Saren stood alone, surrounded by the glowing lights of the city. "Why do you not speak?" Saren asked, her voice soft but probing. "I can feel your thoughts, Leo. You are troubled." Leo hesitated, his thoughts racing. How could she know? He hadn't said a word, hadn't even moved. Yet she was right, he was troubled. "I don't know what to make of all this," Leo admitted. "This mission, the Varen, I didn't expect any of this. I thought I was just here to negotiate a deal, but now I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing." Saren smiled gently. "It is natural to be confused. You came here with one purpose, and yet your path has changed. You do not yet understand the full scope of what is happening." Leo frowned. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Saren took a step closer, her presence overwhelming yet comforting. "You are here because the Varen need your help. But it is not just diplomacy you are being asked to offer. There are forces at play that go beyond politics, beyond simple agreements. The future of your world and mine, they are intertwined." Leo felt his heart rate quicken. "What forces? What are you talking about?" Saren's expression softened, but her eyes were filled with something much deeper, something ancient, something that Leo couldn't fully comprehend. "It is not my place to tell you everything, Leo. You must see for yourself. But know this, your presence here is no accident. And the connection between us is not just chance." Leo opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, Saren reached out and placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was light but firm, and for a moment Leo felt a surge of warmth spread through him, as if something deep within him had been awakened. "Trust in the journey," she said softly, "and trust in me." Leo swallowed, trying to process everything she had said. "Trust in you. How am I supposed to trust in something I don't understand?" Saren's smile deepened. "Sometimes, trust comes not from understanding but from feeling. And I believe you feel it now, do you not?" Leo opened his mouth to respond but found that he couldn't. For the first time since arriving on this alien world, he realized that he was no longer in control. There was something about Saren, about the way she seemed to understand him, about the way she looked at him, that made him feel both exposed and alive. It was like being drawn into a current that he couldn't escape, no matter how hard he tried. And in that moment, he understood that this was no ordinary diplomatic mission. He was about to be swept into something far greater than he could have ever imagined. The days following his conversation with Saren had been a blur for Leo. The weight of her words pressed on him constantly, echoing in his mind. "Trust in the journey," she had said. But how could he trust in something he didn't understand? Every time he saw Saren, his heart raced, a mix of admiration and confusion. She had told him to trust, but trust was hard, especially when nothing made sense. The mission had started as something simple, negotiate peace between Earth and the Varen. But now, it felt like he was stepping into something much bigger, something he wasn't prepared for. The Varen seemed to know everything. They read his thoughts, sensed his emotions, and spoke with a kind of wisdom that felt almost supernatural. Saren, especially, was the most enigmatic of them all. Leo couldn't get her out of his head. There was something about her presence that was both captivating and unsettling. Every time their eyes met, Leo felt as if she was seeing right through him, peeling back the layers of his thoughts and feelings without a word. One evening, as Leo wandered the city streets, lost in thought, he was approached by a group of Varen soldiers. Their armor was sleek, dark, and menacing, the reflective surface almost glowing under the light of the twin moons. They didn't say a word as they surrounded him, their eyes fixed on him with intensity. Leo tensed, his hand instinctively moving toward the communication device at his side, but he didn't make a move to call for help. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to, if he should. The soldiers simply watched him, waiting for something. "Come with us," one of them finally said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Leo nodded slowly, though his heart was pounding. This wasn't part of the plan. He had no idea what was going on, but there was something in the soldier's eyes that made him hesitate. The Varen weren't violent by nature. Everything about their civilization seemed calm and peaceful. But in that moment, Leo felt as if he was about to face something that wasn't about diplomacy, peace, or understanding. They led him through the winding streets, their footsteps echoing off the smooth stone buildings. The air was thick with tension, and Leo could feel the weight of the Varen's eyes on him, as though they were all watching, judging him. After a short walk, they arrived at a large, domed structure in the center of the city. It was unlike any building Leo had seen before. Smooth, flowing lines, and large panels of transparent material that seemed to shift in color with the light. The structure pulsed with an energy that was almost alive, and as they entered, Leo could feel the change in the air, a thick sense of anticipation settling around him. Inside, the room was vast and silent. The walls were covered in intricate symbols that glowed softly, pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. At the center of the room stood Saren, her violet eyes glowing in the dim light. She was alone, waiting for him. Her expression was unreadable, her face a mask of calm. Leo was confused, his thoughts swirling. Why was he here? What did they want from him? Before he could speak, Saren's voice echoed in the silence, soft yet commanding. "Leo, you have been brought here for a reason." He swallowed, feeling a knot form in his stomach. "What's going on? What is this place?" Saren stepped forward, her eyes locking with his. "This is the Chamber of Understanding," she said. "It is where all Varen must come when their minds are clouded. It is a place to confront themselves, to see the truth that they often hide." Leo felt a shiver run down his spine. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "What do you mean? What truth?" Saren smiled, but it wasn't the same smile he had seen before. It was softer, more serious. "You came here to help your people, to negotiate peace, but you have not yet understood the true nature of the Varen. There is something you are missing, something important." Leo's mind raced. He had thought that his mission was about peace, about establishing relations. But now, standing in front of Saren in this strange, silent room, he wasn't so sure anymore. Was he being tested? Was there more to his mission than he had realized? "I don't understand what you're asking me to do," Leo said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I thought I was just here to talk, to help, but now you're telling me there's more." "Yes," Saren said softly, "there is always more. The Varen are not just a race of diplomats or scientists. We are connected to the universe in ways that you cannot yet comprehend. Our abilities, our knowledge, it all comes from something deeper, and you, Leo, are now a part of that connection." Leo's chest tightened. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "I don't know if I can be part of whatever this is." Saren's gaze softened, her eyes filled with understanding. "You already are. Your presence here, your thoughts, your very being, they are all part of this journey. You just need to accept it." Leo took a step back, shaking his head. "But what about my mission? What about Earth? What about everything I was sent here to do?" Saren's eyes glimmered. Your mission is important, Leo, but it is only a small part of a much larger picture. You must learn to see beyond the immediate. You must learn to trust not just in yourself, but in the forces that have brought you here. He felt a wave of dizziness wash over him, as if the very air around him was shifting, swirling with unseen currents. He felt himself being pulled into something larger than anything he had ever known. I don't know if I can, Leo whispered. I'm not like you. I don't have your abilities. I can't just feel everything, understand everything like you can. Saren stepped closer, her hand reaching out to gently touch his arm. You are more like us than you realize, Leo. You just haven't found it yet. The words hit him like a shock. He had always thought of himself as just a human, ordinary, capable of only ordinary things. But Saren was telling him that there was more within him, something waiting to be discovered. How do I find it? Leo asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Saren smiled, her expression full of quiet confidence. That, Leo, is what you must discover for yourself. But first, you must confront the truth within you. You must look deep inside and ask yourself what you truly want. Leo stood there, the weight of her words pressing down on him. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion, but deep inside something stirred. He didn't know what it was, but for the first time he felt like he was standing on the edge of something vast, something he couldn't yet see, but something that was calling him forward. Saren stepped back, her gaze never leaving his. When you are ready, come to me. The journey will not be easy, but it will be worth it. And with that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the chamber, leaving Leo alone with his thoughts. He stood there for a long moment, unsure of what to do next. The room seemed to close in on him, the air heavy with the weight of everything Saren had said. There were so many questions, so many things he didn't understand. But one thing was certain, his journey had just begun. Leo stood at the edge of the chamber, the weight of Saren's words still lingering in his mind. The silence in the room was thick, as though the very air was waiting for him to make a choice. The truth within him, the truth Saren had hinted at, felt like it was just out of reach, something just beyond his grasp. He had come to the Varen city to complete a diplomatic mission. Simple, right? Talk, negotiate, and bring peace. But the mission had grown into something far larger, something he couldn't fully comprehend. Saren's words still echoed in his mind. You are more like us than you realize. The thought troubled him. How could that be true? He was human. He was bound by human limitations, human thoughts, human fears. But the way Saren had looked at him, the way she had spoken, there was something undeniable in her words. She had seen something in him, something he hadn't yet seen in himself. It was a thought that terrified him. Taking a deep breath, Leo turned from the chamber and walked into the streets of the city. The Varen city was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The shimmering lights, the flowing architecture, it all felt so foreign, yet there was something oddly comforting about it. The streets were filled with Varen moving about their daily lives, and yet Leo felt like an outsider. They were all so sure of their place, so certain of who they were, while he struggled to make sense of it all. Leo wandered through the streets, the soft glow of the city lights casting long shadows around him. His mind raced. What did Saren mean by all of this? His mission, his very purpose here had always been clear. But now, with Saren's cryptic words and the weight of the chamber of understanding still pressing on him, nothing seemed simple anymore. As he walked, Leo caught sight of something, a group of Varen children playing in the plaza. Their laughter was soft, harmonious, and despite the differences in their appearance, there was something universal in their joy. The innocence, the freedom of the moment felt like a stark contrast to the confusion Leo felt inside. He stopped for a moment, watching them. For the first time since he arrived, Leo began to feel a flicker of understanding. These children, these beings, perhaps they weren't so different from humans after all. The Varen had their advanced abilities, their ancient knowledge, But underneath it all, they were still beings searching for meaning, just like Leo. Maybe I've been too focused on the differences, Leo thought. Maybe it's not about what divides us, but what connects us. The realization struck him with a force he hadn't expected. He wasn't just here to make peace between two worlds. He was here to learn, to understand, to see the connections between all beings, not just the ones that looked like him. As Leo continued to walk through the city, a new sense of clarity began to form within him. The uncertainty, the confusion, it was all part of the journey. Saren had been right. He needed to trust in it. Trust that, even if he didn't understand everything right away, the pieces would eventually fall into place. His journey, both literal and metaphorical, was far from over. But now, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. It wasn't just about fulfilling his mission anymore. It was about understanding the larger picture. The universe wasn't divided by species or borders. It was united by a shared existence, a shared desire for connection, for understanding. Later that evening, Leo made his way back to the central plaza. He didn't know why, but he knew he had to speak to Saren again. The uncertainty in his heart had given way to something else, curiosity, a desire to understand more. There was still so much about the Varen, about Saren, that he didn't know, and he wanted to learn. He found her standing in the same place they had met days earlier. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes, the same violet eyes that had captivated him from the moment he saw her, softened as he approached. "You came back," Saren said, her voice as calm as ever. Leo nodded. I think I understand now," he said quietly. Saren raised an eyebrow as though waiting for him to continue. "I came here to negotiate peace," Leo said, his voice steady but unsure. "But I've learned that peace isn't just about treaties or agreements. It's about understanding. About seeing beyond the surface and recognizing the connections between us all." Saren's gaze softened, and for a moment, Leo could have sworn he saw something like approval in her eyes. "You are starting to see the truth, Leo." Leo looked down at his hands, feeling the weight of his words. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. I don't know if I'm ready to be part of something larger than myself." Saren stepped closer, her presence calm yet powerful. "No one is ever truly ready," she said softly. "But that is the beauty of it. We don't have to be ready, we only need to be willing." Leo met her gaze, the fear and uncertainty beginning to fade. "I'm willing," he said quietly. "I want to understand. I want to be a part of this." A small smile played at the corners of Saren's lips. "Then you have already taken the first step." They stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the city around them the only sound. Leo's heart slowed, and for the first time since arriving on the Varen planet, he felt at peace. He wasn't sure where the journey would take him. He didn't know what the future held or what his role in all of this would be. But in that moment, he understood one thing. His mission was no longer just about Earth or about the Varen. It was about the connection between all living beings, the shared experience of existence. As he looked into Saren's eyes, Leo realized that this was just the beginning of a journey that would stretch far beyond the stars, beyond the borders of Earth, into a deeper understanding of the universe itself. And for the first time, Leo wasn't afraid of the unknown. He was ready to embrace it.